everybody. This is the Jeff Cowan coming to you from thejeffcowan.com with my podcast, weekly podcast, Success in Professional Sales and Success in Life in General. Welcome back. And when I say welcome back, I really mean it. I want to thank all of you for spreading the word because, boy, the popularity in this podcast is just growing by leaps and bounds. I think this last week alone we had 1,000 more people sign up for it. And as we're talking about signing up for it, I don't know if you know it or not, but it comes in two forms. You can either see a video version of this or you can listen to it as a podcast. And you can do both if you want. I say do both. What the heck? What you got to lose, right? It's a good message, and so why hearing it 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, or 15 times isn't going to hurt you. So if you're listening to it as a podcast and you say, I'd like to see the video because maybe I'd like to play it in a sales meeting or something like that, it's simple. You just go to thejeffcowan.com, give us your email address, and we'll start sending this podcast to you in video form every Tuesday at 12 Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Now, if you're one of the people watching it on video and you say, I'd like to listen to it in the car or when I'm out doing my morning exercises or whenever, so I really want to listen to it as a podcast, how do I do that? Well, go to thejeffcowan.com, and we have all the instructions there because it's hosted on a lot of different places, like on Google and Apple and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, thank you for coming back. Now, the message that I've got for this week is actually going to be the message I have for this week and next week because I think the message is too big to try and squish into the 15 minutes that I try to contain these podcasts in. So it's going to be a two-parter. And the main topic is going to be worrying, okay? Worrying. I find out that a lot of salespeople waste a lot of time worrying. I used to be that way. I am no longer because I realize that when you worry, you accomplish nothing. And as a matter of fact, you can actually hurt yourself and create a lot of failure and a lot of missed opportunity if you worry about things too much. Because, you know, many people worry. They worry about missing sales. They worry about making their commission. They worry about keeping their job. They worry about losing their territory. They worry about failure. And you know what? Like I've already said, worry solves nothing. Worry creates failure. As a matter of fact, I think worry is the seeds to failure. Now, the reason I say that is because when I was a worrier, when I worried, and if you're a worrier, you'll know what I mean, you really can't do anything else if you're worrying. It was hard to prospect if I was worried because they would hear it in my voice and I'd be agitated. It was hard to close somebody if I was worrying because they could feel that. It was hard for me to communicate and get along with other people in the office if I was worrying. It was hard for me to sleep at night. And when I didn't sleep at night, then I even got more agitated and seemed to make more people mad, and it just went down, 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 down. So what I'm going to show you how to do is how to exchange worrying for success. Because, you know, and you've got to have a plan because many people feel that, you know, poor sales, missed sales, slow sales will just heal themselves. So they sit and wait. And we wait and we sit and we wait and we sit. And the longer we wait, the more we worry. Because as we're waiting, nothing's happening. And so the worry just takes over. You know, and there's an old saying out there that states the best way to help yourself if you're in a slump is to sell yourself out of the slump. Well, that's only half the equation because that will not stop worrying. Selling yourself out of a slump will not stop worrying. Only preparing yourself to sell yourself out of a slump will stop the worry. And when I say prepare, what I really mean is training yourself. Because if you're training and preparing, then you have no time for worry. All right? You have no time for worry. So if you want to exchange your worry for success, you must train yourself. And if you train, you prepare, there will be no worry. And because the payoff for not training is failure. Why? Because, again, you spend too much time worrying. So what are the steps? What am I talking to? What am I getting to here? What are the steps for exchanging worry for success? Well, I've got 5 steps. I'm going to give you 2 this week. I'm going to give you another 3 next week. Plus, at the end of next week, I'm going to have some messages for managers and business owners. But before I get into any of that, I have to tell you about my sponsor, Lightspeed VT. Now, Lightspeed VT is in the great state of Nevada, in the great city of Las Vegas, Nevada. And here's why you want to call them. They have a training platform. So you say, well, that's cool. What am I going to do with that? Business owners, managers, you're going to take all the training that you've created over the years, all the training you've invested in, no matter whose it is, whether it's audio, whether it's video, and Lightspeed's got a platform. They're going to show you how to download all that and put it all in one place. And they're going to allow you to take all your branding and your logos and stuff and put it all over this platform so it really looks like it's all your stuff that you've invested in for your people to train with. But it's just not a place to organize because what they're also going to show you how to do is take that training, put it in 5 to 10 minute segments that anybody can watch anytime on any Wi-Fi device, whether they're home at work, on their phone, on laptops, on smart TVs, wherever. And so it's easy to watch because it's short. And then they're going to show you how to create a testing mechanism. So you can test your people on what they watch. Now this is huge because right now when you show your people your training, they watch it, whether it's on DVD or it's online or whatever, or they listen to it. Let's assume it's audio, it's an audio version of it. At the end of it, you ask them if they liked it. What do they say? Yes. You ask them if they understood it. What do they say? Yes. But with the testing, you'll find out through their passing and failure what they understand, how well they understand the like. It's the best training tool I've ever seen. And so how do you get your hands on this? You simply call Lightspeed VT at 702-369-4260. Again, 702-369-4260. And tell them the Jeff Cowan told you to call. They'll give you a big discount, and they'll get you all set up. Now, you say, I don't have my own training, so what do I do? Well, they have access to all the trainers in the world, whether it's an industry-specific trainer or the big guys like Tony Robbins, John Maxwell, Dave Anderson. My training's on there. Anybody is on this training platform. If you're an individual, you're not a manager, you're not a business owner, and you just want to get yourself trained, call Lightspeed VT. Now, back to this. So how are we going to exchange worrying, which accomplishes nothing other than setting you up for failure? How are we going to exchange the worry for success? Number one, when you exchange worry time for training time, there's no time to worry, right? Because you're focused on the training. Now, let me explain to you what I'm talking about. You know, over the years, being a speaker, public speaker, I do a lot of keynote addresses. I get invited to all types of conventions and special events and stuff. And typically when you get invited to these, they're like shows, if you will. And they're kind of like concerts. You know, when you go to a concert, you might have an opening act, and then you have a middle act, and then you have the headliner. Well, speaking a lot of times is the same way. And depending on where you are and what you're doing and how good you are, a lot of times dictates when you go on the stage. Now, in the earlier days, when I first started out, I opened a lot of shows, and I loved it. See, I was a worrier. So what I would do, and I'd get all uptight about this stuff and just almost get panicked, because when you're talking about doing a presentation, or doing, you know, a keynote address, you're really doing a sales presentation. Because if you do it right, then people want to buy your books, they want to buy your training programs, they want to invest in you, they want to have you come and do workshops and all that kind of stuff. So it's a big sales presentation, right? So it's a worry. Am I going to be good enough? Am I going to be good enough? So what I would do to stop from worrying is I'd stay up as late as I could. I mean, I'd fight to stay up until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning and fall asleep, and then I'd get up the last possible minute, run out of the hotel room, and jump on stage at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and there was no time to worry. But good and bad came over the years, because the better I got at speaking, the more I started moving up the ladder. So I went from no longer being just the first guy on to maybe the guy that was on right before lunch, the guy was on right after lunch, the guy was on at the end of the afternoon, the guy was on end of the day, or headliner or whatever. Now, the good news is I was growing. I was becoming a headliner. The bad news is you can't sleep in until 5 p.m. You can't sleep in until 3 the next afternoon. You can't sleep in until 7 o'clock. I mean, you have to get out of bed at some point in time, right? And that's a lot of time to worry. So what did I do to prepare myself? I trained. What I do to keep from worrying is I trained. I would go over the presentation over and over and over. I'd practice it in my hotel room over and over and over. And I just did this recently at an event called the Best Training Day Ever. It's sponsored by a company called Easy Care. This one happened to be down in Dallas, right? There's several speakers on the stage, and I'm on late afternoon. And so I knew that if I sat around all day long, I would worry about it, and I didn't want to do any of that stuff. So what I did is I practiced in the room. I got up at 5 a.m. like I usually do, had a big breakfast, got dressed, got all cleaned up, and I pulled out my PowerPoint, and I started making this hour-and-a-half presentation over and over. I did it, I think, 4 times before I walked on stage that day. And so what happened is there was no time to worry. What happened is I got better and better and better. So when I walked out there, I did one of the best presentations ever, because I didn't have time to worry. I only was preparing, and I was only making myself as good as I could be. So, number one, when you exchange worry time for training time, there's no time to worry. And just to pat myself on the back here and brag a little bit, I knocked it out of the park that day. And I even carry this on to when I'm in the office. You see, we have an open door policy that anytime I'm here, if anybody wants me to help them with a presentation, I will help them with the presentation. We get into some pretty big stuff on these go-to meetings where we're talking a few $100,000 for some massive training programs, right? And you know, I mean, you can worry yourself to death over that. You know, you keep going over the PowerPoints and whatever. And so what we do is before we get started on that stuff, we just train ourselves, we practice, we role play. It takes the worry out of the room. Nobody's upset. Everybody gains confidence. The more confident they get, the better they sound when the presentation actually starts. So when you exchange worry time for training time, there's simply no time to worry. Number two, the hurt of losing a sale can start healing when you start training. Now, why is this? And what am I talking about, hurt? Well, most guys and gals that do these podcasts, all they do is they get in there and talk about how great they are and how many sales they've made and how much commissions they've made and how much money they've made. You know what? I've closed more than my fair share well, I won't say more than my fair share because I think I should get them all, but I've closed thousands of sales. I've made hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in commission off of closing sales. And so I could just sit here and talk about that, but in reality, just like all these other people who fail to talk about this next point, there's times I lose sales, and I tell you what, sometimes it really hurts because some of the effort I put into this to get these sales is unbelievable. I mean, from the time it takes to get a prospect, talking to you on the phone and through email, to the point where they want to see a presentation, to the point where they invite you over to their business, so which means sometimes flying out of California to the East Coast, meaning I'm burning a day to get there, and then I stay there all night, I prepare, I go on the next day, maybe make an hour and a half presentation, spend a half day with them, everything goes well, they make you believe you're going to get the sale, you get on the airplane, you fly back home only to find out the next day you didn't get the sale. And let me tell you something, when that happens, every single time, it hurts. It hurts big, okay? And sometimes that hurt would turn into me worrying about what did I do wrong, and so what would happen is I'd be down for 2 or 3 days after this, and that's not productive. I don't have time to be down. I certainly can't burn 2 or 3 days, and in today's with working environment I'm in, I can't even burn 2 or 3 hours. So what I've found is losing a sale can hurt, and hurt creates worry. So what replaces worry and what replaces the hurt is if I train. Because immediately when I lose a sale, what I do is I sit down, okay? I sit down and look at what I did, how I did it, what I said, when I said it, what was on the PowerPoints, and I go through it and start making corrections. And so by training myself and spending my time doing that, I just get myself that much better prepared and put myself in a better opportunity, give myself a better opportunity to be successful the next time. So by training, it quickly takes the hurt and it turns it into success. And we even do that with ProTalk, one of my companies here. It's on that cup right there. I have a process that I think I mentioned this a second ago. Whenever I'm in the office, if anybody thinks I could add value to making a presentation, any salesperson, they can come in my office and ask me, and I'll help them out. But there's some criteria, all right? And the criteria is they have to tell me what we're talking about, obviously, what the people's interested in, and then we sit there and we role play it a little bit. We go over what we're going to say and what's important, what slides are they going to present, what slides am I going to present. We make the presentation, we put a lot of effort into it. And, most of the time, we get these sales. Sometimes we get somebody that wants to think about it for a day or so, which is okay, but there are times when people just flat out say, this isn't what we were looking for, it wasn't what we thought it was, and they say no. Well, you can just feel the air go out of the room when everybody says it. You can see the hurt on their faces. I'm sure they can see the hurt on my faces, but I know if I let that hurt sit there, then nobody's going to be productive. They're going to go out and they're going to continue that hurt, and they're going to spread it to their next prospect, to their next presentation, whatever. So I found the quickest way to nip the bud and get rid of the hurt is to immediately start critiquing. So what we do is anybody in that room can critique anybody else in the room, talking about, I think you did this right, I think you did this right, but when you said this, I don't know if I would have said it this way, or we presented this, I don't know if I would have presented it that way. And what we do is we find out where our weaknesses are. We quickly start training right there. Okay, so what would you have said in place of that? What would you have done in place of that? Okay, now we all agree on that. Let's practice that so the next time we get on a phone, next time we get in front of somebody, we can do it the right way and give ourselves a better chance at being successful. And when we're doing that, guess what we're not doing? We're not hurting, and hurting creates worrying, because what happens again, we're not hurting, we're not worrying. Instead, we're exchanging it for success, because the more we do that, the more successful we are, and the more that you do that, the more successful you're going to be. So there's the first 2 points. Come back next week and give you the next 3 points. I'll give you some more stories and go in a little bit more detail. And at the end of next week's message, in relation to this message, stopping the worry, I got a message for business owners and managers. So if you have a team that seems to worry, or you're worried about your team's success, some things that you can do as well. So this could be, just like this was a great podcast, next week is going to be great as well. It's part 2. You want to come back to that. In the meantime, here's what I want you to do. I want you to make it a great week. I want you to have happy holidays. And since it is the holidays, let me just throw this out there. I want you to pay it forward. I want you to take a look back over the last year, and I want you to think about somebody you've not talked to in a long time, and I want you to call them and wish them happy holidays. I want you to think about somebody maybe you haven't gotten along with, or maybe there's a family member out there that you don't always agree with. I want you to call and tell them happy holidays, or at least text them and tell them that. I want you to think about somebody who might be alone, or maybe is down on their luck, or just down on themselves. If they live close enough to you, I want you to take them to lunch, and it's just a nice gesture for the holidays and for the Christmas and whatnot. So with that, my name's Jeff Cowan, coming to you from thejeffcowan.com. I appreciate you listening this week. I look forward to you listening to me next week as I present next week's podcast, part 2 to this one. And like I already said once, in the meantime, make it a great day, make it a happy holidays, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.